Recent comments made by ADC chieftain and Nollywood actor turned politician Kenneth Okonkwo have sparked serious reactions across Nigeria's political space. His statements about the political ambition of Peter Obi have continued to generate heated debate, especially among supporters who feel the comments were unfair, exaggerated, and politically misleading. Speaking on national television, Kenneth Okonkwo suggested that Peter Obi is projecting himself as the only Igbo man capable of becoming president of Nigeria. He also questioned Obi's academic background, referencing his university classification, and argued that there are many other capable Igbo leaders who can lead the country. But many Nigerians, especially supporters of Peter Obi, strongly disagree with this interpretation. They argue that the comments do not reflect Obi's actual political message and instead create unnecessary division in a country already struggling with unity and trust in leadership. Peter Obi has consistently positioned himself as part of a broader movement focused on good governance, accountability, economic discipline, and national rebuilding. His supporters say he has never at any point claimed exclusivity in leadership or suggested that other Igbo individuals are not capable. Instead, his message has been centered on competence and performance in public office. Because of this, critics of Kenneth Okonkwo's comments argue that his interpretation is not based on Obi's actual statements, but rather on a political disagreement that has been framed in a more personal and emotional way than necessary. One of the most controversial parts of Okonkwo's statement was his reference to Peter Obi's academic performance, where he mentioned a third-class university result. This has been widely criticized across social and political discussions in Nigeria. Many people argue that bringing up academic classification from decades ago is not relevant to the discussion of presidential leadership today. They say leadership is not defined by university grades, but by vision, integrity, decision-making ability, and track record in public service. Supporters of Peter Obi often point to his time as governor and his economic management style as more important indicators of leadership than academic results. They argue that focusing on grades is a distraction from the real issues affecting Nigerians, such as inflation, insecurity, unemployment, and poor governance systems. There is also a wider concern that such comments shift political conversation away from policy and into personal attacks. Many Nigerians are tired of politics that focuses on insults instead of solutions. For them, what matters is not what someone scored in university, but what they can deliver as a leader in a struggling nation. Another major point raised by Kenneth Okonkwo was the idea that Peter Obi is making it seem like he is the only capable Igbo leader who can become president. However, supporters of Obi strongly reject this claim. They argue that Obi's political rise has not been based on exclusion, but on public demand. His popularity, especially among young Nigerians, is seen as a response to economic hardship and dissatisfaction with the political system. His supporters say people chose him not because others are not capable, but because they believe in his message of accountability and change. In democratic systems, it is normal for many candidates to exist while one becomes more popular based on public trust. This does not mean others are incapable. It simply means one candidate has gained more support at a particular time. Critics of Okonkwo's statement argue that framing Obi's popularity as arrogance or exclusivity is misleading. They say it ignores the broader political reality that Nigerians themselves are choosing who they believe can lead them better. Kenneth Okonkwo also suggested that within political arrangements and party structures, Obi influenced processes such as internal elections and administrative decisions. But political analysts point out that such arrangements are common in party politics. In any political party, negotiations, alliances, and strategic placements happen regularly. These are part of the political process and do not automatically indicate fear, manipulation, or wrongdoing. They are standard practices in democratic systems around the world. Supporters of Peter Obi argue that presenting these normal political processes as something suspicious creates unnecessary tension and distorts public understanding of how political parties operate. Beyond the specific arguments, this controversy also reflects a deeper issue in Nigerian politics, which is the increasing personalization of political debates. Instead of focusing on policies, economic strategies, and governance reforms, discussions often shift toward individual character, academic history, or personal interpretation of intentions. Many Nigerians are becoming concerned about this trend. They believe that political discourse should be elevated to focus more on ideas and less on personal attacks. For them, the real question is not who said what about whom, but how Nigeria can solve its many pressing problems. Supporters of Peter Obi often argue that his political style has generally focused on policy discussions rather than insults. They say he emphasizes economic responsibility, reduction of waste in government, and building a more productive national system. Because of this, they expect his critics to respond with similar policy-based arguments instead of personal criticism. On the other hand, critics of Kenneth Okonkwo's remarks believe that his comments may have gone beyond political disagreement into a form of character framing that does not help national dialogue. They argue that even though disagreement is part of democracy, it should be expressed in a way that encourages unity and constructive debate rather than division or personal targeting. Another important aspect of this controversy is the strong emotional reaction it has generated among supporters of Peter Obi. His support base is known for being highly active and deeply engaged in political discussions, especially online. Many of them view Obi not just as a politician, but as a symbol of a different kind of leadership they want to see in Nigeria. This makes any criticism of him very sensitive and often strongly contested. However, observers also note that strong support does not mean criticism should not exist. In democracy, every political figure is subject to scrutiny. The key issue is whether that scrutiny is fair, balanced, and based on facts. In this case, supporters of Obi argue that Kenneth Okonkwo's comments did not fairly represent Obi's actual political message. They believe his interpretation introduced assumptions that are not supported by Obi's public statements. There is also the broader issue of ethnic representation in Nigerian politics. Okonkwo's argument about Igbo leadership capability touches on a sensitive national topic. Nigeria is a diverse country with many ethnic groups, and political conversations often become emotionally charged when they involve questions of representation. However, many Nigerians argue that leadership should be based on competence and trust rather than ethnic ownership or competition. From this perspective, the focus should be on who can deliver results, not who represents a particular group. Peter Obi supporters often emphasize this point, saying his message is about national rebuilding, not ethnic exclusivity. They argue that reducing his political identity to ethnic framing misses the larger goal of his movement. At the same time, critics of Okonkwo's comments also say that public figures must be careful with language, especially when addressing sensitive political topics. Words can easily be interpreted in ways that increase division or misunderstanding. In a country like Nigeria, where political and ethnic tensions can already be high, responsible communication is seen as very important. As this debate continues, one clear thing is that Peter Obi remains a highly influential figure in Nigerian politics. His popularity and political movement continue to attract attention, both positive and critical. But supporters believe that criticism should be based on facts, policies, and governance records rather than personal comparisons or academic references that have little relevance to current national challenges. They argue that Nigeria needs more serious political discussions focused on solving problems rather than attacking individuals. In conclusion, the controversy surrounding Kenneth Okonkwo's comments has opened up a wider conversation about how political debates are conducted in Nigeria. While he argues that no single individual should dominate political perception within any ethnic group, many believe his statements about Peter Obi were misrepresented and unnecessarily personal. The disagreement highlights the tension between political rivalry and constructive national dialogue. It also reflects the growing demand from Nigerians for a new kind of politics, one that focuses less on personal attacks and more on ideas, solutions, and national progress. As the debate continues, Nigerians remain divided in opinion but united in one clear expectation: better leadership, better communication, and a political culture that puts the country first.